Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
Okay. We are pleased to have a return guest, our National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who will give some brief opening remarks and then take some of your questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Thanks, Jen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll make some comments, and then, as Jen said, I'm happy to take your questions. I want to start once again by saluting our troops and civilians at the Kabul fell just over a week ago. Kabul fell within just 48 hours. They had secured within 48 hours. They had safely and effectively drawn down our embassy compound and retrograded our embassy compound and retrograded our. They have now facilitated the evacuation. Of more than 37,000 people out of the country. American citizens, third country nationals, our Afghan allies, and Afghans at risk of persecution. In the last 24 hours alone, 28 U.S. military flights have evacuated approximately 10,400 in addition, people from Kabul. 61 coalition aircraft have evacuated approximately 5,900. That is more than 16,000. That is more than 16,000 people, and the flights are continuing. Our flights are continuing as we speak, hour by hour. We have established a network of transit centers. We have established a network of transit centers in multiple countries where we are getting U.S. citizens on flights home, where we are getting U.S. citizens on biometric and biographic background checks on Afghan evacuees before having them relocated to a third country. All told, 26 countries on 4 continents are contributing to this airlift in history. A massive military, diplomatic, a massive security, humanitarian, a testament to the power and purpose of the United States. I want to provide an update on American citizens. We've helped thousands of Americans leave. We've helped thousands of Americans. We've contacted Americans still in Afghanistan. We've contacted Americans still in Afghanistan by text, by email, to give them specific instructions. We have developed a method to safely and efficiently transfer groups onto the American citizens for operational reasons. I'm not going to go into further detail on this. Many people have asked reasonably why we cannot provide a precise number of American citizens still in country. When Americans have come to Afghanistan we ask them to register with the embassy. Many have left without deregistering. Others never register at all. Others never register at all, of course. That is our responsibility to find them. And it's our responsibility to find them, which we are now doing. In the days remaining, we believe we have the wherewithal to get out the American citizens who want to leave. This operation is complex. It is fraught with challenges. It is dangerous. It is fraught with challenges. Operational, logistical, and it's produced searing images of pain and desperation. But no operation like this, no evacuation from a capital that has fallen without those images, could unfold without. The question is, are we on track to fulfill our objective? To bring out our people? So many of those Afghans who helped us, at risk, and so many of those Afghans at risk. As we conduct these operations, we are sustaining the highest level of vigilance for an attack against the airport or another terrorist group. Our commanders on the ground have taken every step they can to prepare. Our president has authorized every capability that those commanders have asked for. To protect the airfield against such. We remain in close touch with allies and partners to coordinate the evacuation of their priority personnel, as well as to respond to the ongoing political and security situation. The president has spoken twice now with the British Prime Minister. He has spoken with the German Chancellor, the French President, the French President, the Italian Spanish President, the Emir of Qatar, and the Crown Prince and the Crown Prince. Tomorrow, he will participate in a G7 leaders meeting on Afghanistan to ensure the world's leading democracies are aligned and united on the way forward. We are working with partners to address the acute humanitarian needs of the Afghans, and we will remain persistently vigilant in Afghanistan and in multiple other theaters. and in multiple other places that we can suppress terrorism without a permanent military presence on the ground, Afghanistan. And we will do the same in Afghanistan. We are deeply moved by the outpouring of support from so many veterans. So many of them veterans of Afghan evacuees, those Afghans at risk, our Afghan allies settle here. This is the best of the American spirit, and we look forward to working with them in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And with that, in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And with that,
Jake, it would be a red line. It would be a red line in Afghanistan. In August 31st deadline. Are you engaged in talks with the Taliban over extending that deadline, and how are extending that deadline? And
we are in talks with the Taliban on a daily basis through the Taliban on a daily basis channels. I'm not going to get into the details of those discussions here, which are covering a wide range of issues. We are also consulting closely with our allies and partners on the issue of the evacuation and on the issue of the evacuation and its just got off the phone. President Prime Minister just got off the phone with the British. We are taking this day by day. We are taking this day by day. We believe we are making enormous progress. And taking a week ago, I don't think almost anyone in this briefing room. I don't think almost anyone in this briefing room. 37,000 people. Believe we're making progress. We're going to keep making progress, and the president will keep making progress. Decision. The president will ultimately make his decision of the operation. The precise shape and scope of the
whether he is going to need whether he is going to August 31st to get beyond August 31st personnel and all U.S. personnel and
as I said, the president believes we are making substantial progress. Dozens of flights. Thousands now, tens of thousands now, tens evacuated from the country. We believe today will be an efficient and effective day. Tomorrow will be an efficient and effective day. And as I said, he is taking this day by day. And as I said, he is taking this day by day and will make his determinations as we go.
Yes. To follow up, the administration thinks that they need Taliban beyond August 30 to extend beyond.
As I said, we are engaging with the Taliban. We are engaging with the Taliban, consulting with the Taliban on every aspect of what's happening on every aspect of what's happening in Kabul, what's happening at the airport, on what's happening at the airport, to ensure that how we need to ensure that there passage to the airport for American citizens, to the airport for American citizens, third country nationals, and so forth. Will continue those conversations and so forth. Ultimately, it will be the president's decision how this proceeds. It will be the president's decision how this proceeds. Yes, no one else.
Yes.
You said you have prepared, but you didn't. Forgive me if I didn't quote right. Forgive me if I stated quote right. But you didn't say that you have the ability. You didn't say that you set a time frame by August 31st.
So, as I've said before, as the president has said before, the president has said that we have time between now and the 31st to get out any American who wants to get out. Any American who wants to get out. Yes.
Yes, I wanted to ask, you said that you have said multiple times, the president has said Afghanistan without these Afghanistan, without no matter when you left that would happen, no matter when you left that would happen. Why did the administration prepare the American public and say to the American public, there are going to be very chaotic scenes. It's going to be rough. There's going to be a rough couple weeks before this. There's going to be a rough couple weeks before this happens. Don't worry, we're not going to be, evacuated. We're not going to be, evacuated or diplomats from the roof of the embassy. Don't worry about that. Why? Don't worry about that. Why? Did the administration not prepare the American public for the chaos?
So first, I'm glad you asked this question. And I want to take a step back and address the nature of this, and then I'll come to your specific point. And then I'll come to your specific point on whether Kabul fell. Whether August, Kabul fell, or in August, or September, or December, the fact is, whenever it fell, the fact going to be whenever it fell, there were going to be American citizens in Kabul. There were going to be third country nationals. There were going to be third country nationals in Kabul. There were going to be Afghans still in the fight. Afghans still in the fight who had supported the U.S. war effort over the last 20 years. So an evacuation operation in a dangerous situation. was in a dangerous situation at some point, was going to have to happen at some point. And when you run an operation, when you are trying to position assets, you are trying to position assets to go in a city that has been taken in a city by opposing forces with a government that's collapsed, with a government that's your contingency plan is going to hit. Your contingency plan is going to hit, and there are going to be complexities and challenges and difficulties, and you work through them. You make adjustments, and you work through them. You make adjustments, and you ultimately get an operation going. If not tens, that is moving out thousands, if not tens of thousands of people daily. That is what we have accomplished. It has not over the course of the week been without its immense difficulties. Been without its immense difficulties, and we are very right about those difficulties. But that is how we have watched the last week unfold. Why the president didn't walk out. Why the president didn't walk out. Let me explain to you exactly what is going to unfold. Let me explain to you exactly what is going to unfold. The president has been clear. All along, the president that the United States was not going to enter a third decade of American military decade in the middle of American military deployment, and in his speech in April, and in his speech in July, and in comments he has made since then, he has been clear that that could mean difficult times in Afghanistan. We have been clear-eyed about this from the start. We have been clear-eyed about this from the start. But what we were not prepared to do, what the president was to say, that for that reason we need to keep American men and women fighting. We need to keep American men and women fighting and dying.
Yes, Jay. Yes. Whether it's August 31st or shortly thereafter, it's clear that those who work for U.S. forces, who work for U.S. forces, are not going to be able to get out. Are not going to be able to get out. For those watching, what do you say to them? What advice do you give? Should they try to get to a third country on their own? Should they try to get to a third country on their own? Should they wait for some diplomatic
So first, we're in touch with. Eligible for the Afghans at risk, eligible for other categories of support from the U.S. Other categories. We're trying to get as many of them to the airport. We're trying to get as many of them to the airport as quickly as possible. And as I said yesterday in comments, we will continue to get Afghans at risk out of the country, even after U.S. military forces have.
The president has criticized his predecessor. He's criticized the Afghan government. One group that he has their failures seem to criticize. At length, though, is the Taliban. Why is that? Is the Taliban? Why does the president continue to say? Why does the Taliban continue to say existential questions about how they'll be viewed on the world stage? About how they'll be viewed on the world stage? Going after the families of these translators. Going after the families of these translators. They already know who they are. They already know who they are.
So first, the president has been very clear about. You've asked him repeatedly, do you trust these guys? And he's told you repeatedly, no, I do not. Of course he does not. No, I do not. Of course he does not. Because we've seen the horrific images from the last time they were out. Because we've seen the way that they've conducted. Because we've seen the way because we've seen the fact that they have been responsible for the fact that they have been responsible for the deaths of 2 decades of men and women. The president was not prepared to continue. President was not prepared to continue. So we have no illusions about the Taliban. So we have no illusions about the Taliban. From our perspective, what we need to do right now is focus on our task at hand. Our task at hand is to get our task. Thousands and thousands of people out of the country as safely and efficiently as possible. As safely and efficiently as possible. That is what we are doing. That is what we do.
Thank you, Jake. The president said Friday we got rid of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We got rid of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. The Secretary of State said there is Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. There is Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Are you presenting the president with the full picture, or is he just with the full picture, or is he just applying the intelligence when he makes these blind statements? The
president was referring to Al-Qaeda's capability to attack Al-Qaeda's capability. Intelligence community tells us which the intelligence community is not present in Afghanistan. It is not present in Afghanistan. What is present in Afghanistan? What is present in Afghanistan? To our forces at the airport is a serious threat from ISIS. And of course, there's the possibility that Al-Qaeda could reconstitute an external. That's why you've heard from the president repeatedly. That's why you've heard from the president repeatedly over-the-horizon capability, about the need for an over-the-horizon United States that working with the United States, continue to suppress the terrorism threat, to continue to suppress the terrorism threat, or ISIS-K, or anyone else, just as we work to suppress the terrorism threat from Al-Qaeda and ISIS threat from Al-Qaeda, in Syria, in Somalia, in Syria, in Somalia, in the Islamic Maghreb, and let me just finish by saying, and let me just finish by saying that from his perspective, has been clear American counterterrorism capabilities have American counterterrorism capabilities where we can suppress that terrorism threat, where we can suppress that terrorism threat. Thousands or tens of thousands of troops on thousands or tens of thousands. Proven that out in other countries, and that is exactly what we intend to do. And that is exactly what we intend to do in Afghanistan. And the president has spoken about the terrorism issue on Afghanistan. Repeatedly.
Does the administration regret not moving? Does the administration regret not moving quicker civilians who work with Afghan civilians who work with?
So again, I'm very glad you asked that question. So again, this refers to the special immigrant. This refers to the special immigrant visa program has been around. Special immigrant visa program has been around. And it was never designed years, and it was never designed by Congress for a massive as conceived by Congress for a massive individual applicant. For a special immigrant visa, typically for a special immigrant under the law, the way that it was applied under the law, the way that it was applied by the various agencies in the U.S. government, 18 to 24 months, 18 to 24 months to get through the various vetting and other requirements, to get the various vetting and other requirements, sometimes multiple, sometimes longer, sometimes. When we took office in January, Trump administration had not processed the Trump administration had not processed a single special immigrant visa in nearly March of 2020. So what we did when we came in, as rapidly as possible to process as many applications as possible, process as many applications as possible, as trimming months and months and months, trimming months and months, working with Congress to get them to actually change the law over the summer, to relax the requirements so we could move. To relax the requirements so we could move people. We put in place an evacuation operation using charter aircraft starting in July to begin moving SIVs. As I said the last time I was at this podium, we did contemplate a big gray tail Afghans and others in the July. We made the determination not to do so. We made the determination not just Afghan government officials, but not just Afghan government officials, but supporters, including many of the people who want to come out now, including many of the people who want to come out now, said that doing so would trigger a complete crisis. Doing so would trigger a complete crisis. As it turns out, in the government. As it turns out, not doing that evacuation didn't exactly save. That was a considered judgment. But that was a once we faced a circumstance in which we needed to help get those folks out. That's precisely to help get those folks out. That's precisely what we did, and that is precisely what we did.
Does the president intend to fire any assigned or after the resignation of any White House personnel or the situation handled?
I have not heard him say so. It's of course your job to ask those kinds of questions. It's of course your job. It's my job just to keep doing what we're doing. It's my job just to keep doing what we're doing, which is every day trying to get.
What if the U.S. can't get allies out of the country by August 31st? Out of the country by August 31st. What happens then if the Taliban says? What happens then if the Taliban says? Is the U.S. going to abide by? Is the U.S. going to abide by?
So I'm not going to take this on as a hypothetical. So I'm not going to take this on as a hypothetical question. What I'm going to say is what I said at the outset. Daily, we're in touch with our allies and partners. We're in touch with our allies and partners in reviewing our progress operation, which we feel this particular operation, which we feel has been substantial over the past few days. And the president will make his own determination.
Approximately number of evacuees that are American citizens. I know you don't want to get deep into operational detail. But the president made clear that the president area made clear that around the area, there's been an expansion in the safe zone. There's been an expansion in the safe zone. Does that mean American troops are operating outside the perimeter?
American troops are not operating outside the American troops are not operating outside the through these military channels. Through these military channels, they have extended the perimeter from the point of view of their checkpoints to allow Americans through, to allow Americans through, to allow country nationals through. That is what is happening now, not right at the gate. That is what is happening now, not right at the gate, a substantial distance away from the gate. A substantial distance away from the gate. I'm not going to get into those distances, but that is what he was referring to. Those distances, but that is what he was referring to with respect to on the question of relative ratio. On the question of the relative ratio, significant majority of those coming out are because the total number of Americans because the total number of relatively limited was relatively so in terms of percentages of the 37,000. So in terms of percentages, the substantial bulk of them are Afghan evacuees. The substantial bulk of them have been evacuees, but a few thousand Americans who have already been evacuated. And we have already been evacuated.
So a few thousand. Do you have anything more specific? Do you have anything more specific? Or and is that why you can't answer that question more specifically? Is that why you can't answer that question more specifically?
So again, the reason why we can't give you a precise number is because not every American who comes into Afghanistan goes and puts themselves in a database, goes and puts themselves in a database. They don't have to. Many of them choose not to. So it's our responsibility. So it's our responsibility. Put out the call through every means we know how. Try to every means we know how. Try to work and ultimately build as credible a list as we can of folks who are holding those passports, of folks who are holding those passports, so that we can bring them to
Americans who are in Afghanistan. Number of Americans how many were in Afghanistan so far now?
Oh, I see. We can get you the precise number. Oh, I see. We can get you the precise number.
Yes. One clarification. You had said that you would get all Americans. You had said that you would get all Americans in Kabul. Did you mean Kabul, or did you mean the entire country? Did you mean Kabul, or did you mean the entire country? One of the things that you all bragged about over the weekend. One of the things that you all bragged about over the weekend. Rapidity with which you guys negotiated over the last several days. The ability to bring flights. The ability to bring flights. To expand the number of places throughout Europe. To expand the number of places throughout Europe. Why wasn't that done months ago? I mean, you yourself have just said you yourself have just said you knew exactly that this chaos was going to erupt at some point. Be the need to negotiate on the fly with these countries if
So I'll take your second question first. I have to tell you, bristle at saying I bragged. Bristle at saying I haven't bragged about anything. I'm trying to give you the straight go from here. I'm trying to give you the straight go from here, and the good and the bad to me. And secondly, means a lot to me. It is certainly the case that we've had to add. It is certainly the case that we've had to add countries and try to. We did spend months negotiating transit centers months to set up negotiating transit centers to set up as part of our contingency and in Europe. And both the Gulf, as it turns out, and in Europe, we have been able to produce a throughput. We have been able to produce that exceeded even our optimistic expectations. That exceeded even our optimistic expectations in terms of the number of folks. The fact is, we are actually overperforming. The fact is, we are actually overperforming in terms of the evacuation numbers. We need a higher ceiling in other facilities at transit centers and other facilities. We're simply adding capacity. So we're simply adding a standing start. But you can't go from a standing start to yes. You can't go from zero in 24 hours. Yes. This is something that we have prepared, this is something that we have prepared, allies and partners on, engaged with allies and partners so that when we pick up the phone and call, so that they don't say, what are you talking about? They know. They don't say, what are you talking about? They know what I'm talking about. They know that the ask has gone from 5,000. They adjust accordingly, and that reflects. They adjust accordingly, and that painstaking diplomacy over the painstaking diplomacy over the course of Oh, I see. Yes, we are trying to get Americans out. We are trying to get Americans out wherever they are.
SIVs. How many SIVs are being brought? How many SIVs are being brought? How many you intend to bring? Is there a goal for how many you intend to bring? What's their long-term plan? And outside of adding a priority 2 designation, what else is this administration doing to expedite the process of
We're not putting a precise number on it. The program. We're not putting a precise number on it. The program isn't some cap on the number of SIVs. There isn't some cap on the number of SIVs. So we are working to get as many out. So we are working to get as many out. If you think about the fact that there has been 20 years, the sheer number of Afghans who in one way or another, the sheer number of Afghans who in one way or another. I'm not going to put a precise number on it. I'm not going to put a precise number on it. I'm not going to put an estimate on it. And the principle is, we are working to get out as many Afghan allies as possible.
Prime Minister Johnson has said that President Biden would extend that office. Did he make that ask given the call? Did he make that ask given the call? What if President Biden does make that either today, if and when he does make that either today?
I'm not going to speak for Prime Minister Johnson or read out the precise details. The President continues to consult with the Prime Minister and our other allies with the Prime Minister
how
this evacuation should proceed
on how this evacuation
should proceed from here, and he'll
He'll say when Prime Minister Johnson does that. He'll say when Prime Minister Johnson does that. That is the report who's going to happen.
So I'm not going to preview what the president will say. I'm not going to preview what the president will say. At the moment, he's focused on private conversations. At the moment, he's focused on private conversations. He will have the opportunity to have that engagement. He will have the opportunity to have that engagement in that private session. And I'm not from the podium going to read out. I'm not from the podium sensitive conversations out what are sensitive conversations among the United States.
How this administration is determining what Americans are still left, what Americans are still left in. Because as you said, there's some people who did not deregister, some people who did not deregister. How is the administration trying to determine who is there and who's not?
So what we have done is we have put out multiple different means through multiple different email, telephone, and email, on radio, and online, on radio, through every possible broadcast and targeted means who may potentially be in Afghanistan. Who may please respond. Please contact us. Please respond. Tell us your location. Please contact us. Please tell us your location. Please tell us how many you'd like to leave. So we've gone through that process, and then we've done a series of calls, and then we've done all of the series of calls through all of the folks to then have a refined conversation. To then have a refined conversation. And then match it up. We've tried to take that and then match it up against to, as I said before, put Americans into groups to officially transfer them the airfield onto. But of course, the airfield. When you're trying to ultimately determine a precise fixed number, that is ongoing today. It will be ongoing tomorrow. Today, and I'm just going to take one more question.
To make sure they're not incapacitated, captured or something like that, or captured or something like that. Are you matching it up to make sure they're not? Are you matching it up to make sure they're not?
We have gone. We have gone through who we believe is in country of everyone who reached out and tried to communicate with them, and reached out and tried to communicate with them in every way. As far as we're concerned, there's two universities. As far as we're concerned, there's two universities. One university has gotten in touch with all of those people. We've reached out to all of those people. The second reached out to all of folks who responded to the all call, which doesn't necessarily match that. Which doesn't necessarily match that. That is a different group of people. Some of whom that is a different group of people. Some of whom we're negotiating in the first place. And we're negotiating. We're discussing with them the best way. We're discussing with them the best way to get them to the airport. Last question.
Thank you so much. Two questions. One on the communication with the Taliban. Would President Biden speaking with the leaders of Taliban? And the second question, President Biden seems to be keeping the America First policy on Afghanistan. How can you say that America is back on the global stage after seeing the global stage in Afghanistan? And how do you think the world is looking at it? How do you think the world is looking at it?
So on the second question, you look at the scenes at the Kabul airport. You look at the scenes at the Kabul airport. Securing an airfield, the United States securing several thousand American troops to facilitate not just the evacuation, but to facilitate the evacuation, but to facilitate the evacuation from friends and foes alike, and to facilitate the evacuation of tens and thousands of people who for humanitarian reasons. This is an enormous. This is an enormous diplomatic, security, humanitarian. There is no other country in the world. There is no other country in the world who could pull something like this off. So that's what I say to the second question. With respect to whether President Biden is likely to speak with the leadership of the Taliban, likely to speak with the leadership of the Taliban. That is not in contemplation. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jake. Let me just do a topper on just another topic. Let me just do a topper on just another topic, okay? And then we'll take plenty of questions. Today, a group on another topic. Today, a group of over 70 leading economists, a group of over 70 leading economists, led by former CEA Chair Austin Goolsbee, announced in an open letter their economic agenda, the bipartisan infrastructure deal, and the Build Back Better plan. Their letter reinforces the case we've made. Their letter reinforces the case we've made. These historic investments are vital for the strength of our economy, are vital for the strength of our economy, and the financial well-being of middle class families. Opportunities will create millions of jobs, lower costs for American families, and lead to significant economic growth. Both the bipartisan infrastructure deal and Build both the bipartisan infrastructure deal and Build Back Better agenda could likely ease just one other note for all of you. Just one other note Vice President Harris is currently, as you know, Vice President Harris is currently, as you know, in Singapore. Her next step will be in Vietnam. Important for the Biden administration. Important for the Biden Harris administration. Our partnerships about strengthening and deepening Vietnam and Southeast Asia, because these partnerships matter to the people, because these partnerships matter to the United States. Prosperity and security of the United States. I also note that she meetings in Singapore today resulted in several meetings in Singapore today resulted in several range of key issues and reaffirmed the strong U.S. issues and reaffirmed the strong U.S. and the U.S.-Singapore strategic and the U.S.-Singapore following their bilateral meeting. They announced their bilateral meeting. They announced agreements on COVID-19, climate change, inclusive growth and innovation, climate change, resilient growth and innovation, and resilient supply chains. Obviously, her trip will continue. Amr, go ahead.
What is your message to moderate House Democrats who want to vote on the bipartisan $4.5 budget blueprint? Why not just do the bipartisan deal first? Why not just do the bipartisan deal first?
I would first say that the president has every intention of signing each of these pieces and what I want to be clear with you all about, and what I want to be clear with you all about is he supports Speaker Pelosi's to get this process done. I'd also note, and you follow this all closely. I'd also note, for those of you watching at home, but for those of you watching at home, important one. This is a procedural but there are a number of different and this is the debate currently, and a healthy one, and important currently within the Democratic caucus on what within the Democratic caucus on what different parts of the president's core agenda in what order should be passed. In some ways, that's a high-class problem. In some ways, that's a high-class problem what they're discussing. Debating, and it's not one that should be unexpected. And it's not one that should be disagreements about a range of issues, even within the Democratic caucus. Even within the Democratic. But I would note that the president's view is. But I would note that the president's view is. But not just 36 years in the Senate rodeo, not even his first rodeo this summer. Not even his first rodeo June and July. He had one in June and July. And we're going to continue to talk to a range of members. I would note for a range of members. I would note for all of you that the president had multiple calls, and also had a call with her leadership team, and also had a call with her leadership team about how vital the Build Back Better agenda is. About how vital the Build Back Better agenda is. Because reduce the cost of housing and education, reduce the cost of housing and education, take on climate change, care for veterans, take on climate change, help families afford child care. So we will continue to be fully engaged. We will continue to be fully engaged. A healthy debate, and this is a healthy debate, and we're confident about the path forward. We have been from the White House and senior team, from the White House and senior team, in touch with a range of officials across all political backgrounds in our caucus. In our caucus, so you can be confident in that.
Today's vaccine. Is there any expectation that this is going to move the ball and get people who've resistant people decide?
Well, it's a really good question, Amr. I think we're going to have to wait and see. I think we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, there have been weeks ago or the last ones I have seen that have showed that of the people who are not yet vaccinated, about a third approximately, vaccinated, about a third approximately, depending on the poll. If there was final approval by the FDA, if there was final approval by the FDA, speak to this today. You saw the president speak to this today, and you will see senior members of our team speak to this more, because we want to seize this moment and take advantage of seize this moment and take advantage of approval to reach out to Americans who were waiting for that moment. But I don't know that we have a prediction of how many. But I don't know that we have an impact on how many. Hopefully, it will have an impact on those who have expressed concern. Go ahead. Sure. Sure. This is really a forum, as you know, Steve. This is really a forum, as you know, Steve. These leaders had discussion just a few months ago when the president was on just a few months ago. We certainly know, and many have talked about their desire to raise questions about the timeline. And the president is happy to have that, and the president is happy. I'm not, of course, going to get ahead of our national security advisor, or the president of the United States, but it's an opportunity to opportunity to discuss, but it's an opportunity to discuss getting American citizens out, getting our Afghan partners who have fought alongside us and many of our allies over the last 20 years, many of our allies over the last 20 years, but also to work with them to continue to get their as well. So citizens expect the discussion will be around that. So, but I don't predict big announcements out of it.
Sanctions on the Taliban, anything sanctions on the Taliban.
Look, I don't think I have more to preview. I think there's a range of topics that G7 members could certainly raise. G7 members President lightly touched on this yesterday, but right now our focus day in and day out right now our focus day in and day out is on the operation and evacuating and relocating as many people out of the country as we possibly can. Go ahead.
What's going on the Hill? What's going on the President's first rodeo? Is he considered offering the President's first rodeo? Is he considered offering that he's willing to put on the table that perhaps would assuage, put on the table that perhaps would assuage legislation, forced training housing capital legislation?
He certainly is familiar with that. But he also is certainly familiar with the leadership of Speaker Pelosi and leadership of Speaker Pelosi to get things done. I would also note that he has been a part of this town and watched healthy disagreements about a range of issues within his own party for many decades. But our focus right now is engaging with a range of members from a high-level staff level. From a high-level staff level, and the President will continue to engage if it is constructive in moving the ball forward. If it is constructive in moving the ball forward, again are focused on getting this done for the American people. Are focused on getting this done for the American people.
Yeah. There's potentially a number of ways forward. There's potentially a number of ways forward. The Speaker has a way forward. You guys back that way forward. The Speaker has a way forward. You guys back that way forward. That seems like the way forward. You're counting what are the other ways forward?
Well, and I was clear, and I appreciate your question. That the President supports. What I was trying to get at, and perhaps not articulately enough, is that this is a procedural vote is that this is a procedural vote to committed to signing each into law, and he's confident to signing each into law, and he's confident in process, and will stay closely aligned. Approach and process, and will stay closely aligned. Go ahead.
Is arriving in the U.S. from Afghanistan, or arriving in the U.S. from Afghanistan. Is the administration working on a plan? Is the administration working on a plan vaccinated to?
So that is correct. On the they are being tested, and we are working through offering vaccines and what that process will look like. I hope to have more of an update on that for you in the next day or two. On that for you in the next day or two.
Convince more businesses to require vaccines now that
will we require or will we push them? Will we require or will we push them?
Will we push them to businesses and require certain or push them to businesses?
Sure. No, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding your question. Sure. No, I just wanted to make sure I was understanding your question. Over the last several weeks, we have already started doing that over the last several weeks, and I think we've seen a number of senior officials speak to this. You've seen a number of senior officials say about the role the private sector can play the role the private sector can play vaccines or taking steps with mandating vaccines or taking steps with their own decisions for them. That is always going to be decisions for them to make, and some private sector companies have and some private sector companies have how final approval of the vaccine may help them take that additional step. So we are here and we are here to be a resource. We are here as they have questions, but certainly as they have questions, but certainly we're hopeful this will help put in place additional measures around the country.
There are right now carrying American weapons. They're wearing American weapons. They're wearing American fatigues. The full bit of advancing America's national security. Advancing America's national security.
Well, Peter, I think my colleague Jake Sullivan spoke to a version. My colleague Jake Sullivan spoke to a version. But let me tell you, let me reiterate some of what he said. Let me reiterate some of what he said. When the President made this decision, bring our men and women home from Afghanistan. Bring our men and women home from Afghanistan. He made that decision not lightly. He made that decision not lightly. With a clear assessment from his national security team about what the impact could be. We have taken steps over the past few months. We have taken steps over the past few months to retrograde materials to bring materials home to the Taliban. We have taken those steps from our military. We have taken those steps from our military. Choices at hand, the President's choices at hand, the President's choices at hand were either to equip the Afghan materials and the equipment and the weapons they needed to fight, or not. He made the decision to equip them with the weapons to fight. Retrograde our materials and equipment. To retrograde our materials and equipment.
Most of the criticism is not leaving Afghanistan. It's the way that he has ordered it to happen. That he has ordered pulling the troops before getting these Americans who are now stranded. First
of all, I think it's irresponsible to say Americans are stranded. They are not. We we are committed to bringing Americans who want to come home. To bringing Americans who want to come home via text, we are in touch with them via email, via any way that we can possibly reach Americans, that we can possibly reach Americans to get them home if they want to return home.
The White House's official position on what's happening in Afghanistan.
I'm just calling you out for saying that we are stranding Americans in Afghanistan. When we have been very clear that we are not very Americans who want to return home. We are going to bring them home, and I think that's important for the American public to hear and understand. For the American public to hear and understand.
And then following up on what somebody asked, America, the president likes to say, America, his policies have Americans getting beat up by the Taliban and getting beat up by the Taliban, babies. Afghans handing babies. Is that what he meant when he said wire fences? Is that what he meant?
What the president meant is that we are going to continue to lead in the world. We are going to being the leaders in the world, including being the leaders in evacuating not just American citizens, but also our allies. And we have done that by evacuating approximately 42,000 that is Americans leading. That is men and women in our military. That is our men and women in our military leading on the ground, securing the airport and didn't secure the airport, and ensuring that we are taking care of our partners, ensuring that we are taking care of our partners as we promised to.
More broadly, the president was asked to ask you about
Sure.
Would you acknowledge this has been a particularly challenging period for the president? There have been questions about his decision-making among some Americans, reflected in some
I would say that, as the president said yesterday, I would say that, but let me try to answer your question again. But let me try to answer your question again. His focus right now is on taking the steps right now is on taking the steps and making the decisions that he feels are in the interest of our national security and the American people. And that may mean that there are chaotic scenes. That may mean that there are people disapproving of his decisions. That there are people disapproving of his decisions and accepts that. He understands that. But he also believes and accepts that. Look at the work of his team, and I know this question was asked earlier. That the test of confidence and of leadership. That the test of is not about how you operate on your best day. It's not about how you operate on your best day. When the chips are down. It's about how you when things are difficult. When the chips are down. When you need to adapt. When things are difficult. When you need to adapt. And that's what we've seen over the last. And that's what we've seen over the last. Men and women in the military do. The men and women in our national security team do. That's what we've seen our national security team do. Just over a week ago, we didn't have control over the airport. Now we have evacuated 35,000. That is American leadership, and that is certainly American leadership, and that is certainly confidence of his team. That people are seeing chaotic, that people are photos, but he continues to believe that this was a decision that only the commander-in-chief was a decision that only the commander-in-chief and one he had to make for our own long-term national security.
A week or so until the deadline. Do you anticipate that the risk citizens to American troops will increase?
You mean on the ground, Kelly? You mean on the ground, Kelly?
Knowing that the number of flights out may be the number of flights out may be dwindling. How do you adjust for that in terms of your preparation?
Well, I would say that security on the ground is security on the ground and volatile, and we are not risky and naive about that, and we are not clear-eyed about that, naive about that, and that's certainly clear-eyed about that. As the president is considering the factor, the August 31st question and the timeline. The August 31st question. It is also a factor of the fact that we have expedited over the last 24 to 48 hours over the last 24 to 48 hours our flights and the number of people we've been able to evacuate is continuing to focus each day, asking detailed questions about how many more people we can get out each day. Because that is a real issue. Because that is one of the reasons, and Jake talked about this a little bit earlier, that we continue to adjust earlier, that we continue to adjust and take operational steps and as it relates to how we're engaging with American citizens, to how we're engaging with our Afghan partners about how and when they should come to the airport as well. How and when they should come to the airport as well.
Jake mentioned that you'd be able to get us a breakdown of the number of people who are being evacuated, the number of people who are being evacuated who are American, but that's something that reporters have been asking for, that's something that reporters have been asking for and not getting for several days. And if not, when could we expect to see that?
I certainly understand the question. I know that my colleague John Kirby said a few thousand Americans have been evacuated earlier today. As Jake noted earlier today, as Jake noted, given the size of the population that we are moving out, and I'm happy that we are also moving out after the I'm happy to what information we can achieve. Go ahead, see what information we can achieve. Go ahead.
The president or the SIV can start, or the SIV can start, and that's in both society, and that's in letter today. Urging a meeting with the letter today. In their letter, urging a meeting with the president. If the Afghan allies are not safely evacuated, and survivors of the conflict, and survivors of the conflict, one, does the president agree with that assessment? One, does the president agree with that assessment? And two,
Well, let me first say that we've been in regular we've been in with a wide range of veterans groups on Afghanistan, with a wide range of veterans groups on Afghanistan, and we're in touch with the organizers of this letter, and we're in touch to arrange a meeting with senior White House officials with senior White House officials. The VA is also working with VSOs and outside applicants, which I know is of primary concern to a number of these groups, as it is to a number of these groups. And the president, as you know, has the utmost respect for people who have served, the utmost respect being a father himself, as being a father someone who had served, and he knows how determined veterans of our military conflict in Afghanistan, veterans of our military conflict, the Afghan allies who risk their lives, to help our troops who risk their lives to help our troops are evacuated. I would also note that one of the things I would also note that one of the things over the past couple of days is that as he thought about making this decision, as he thought about making this decision, several moments that has stuck with him is that several moments that has stuck with him is that know this, but many of you spent every Christmas day at Walter Reed, sitting with Gold Star families and sitting with Gold Star men and women who had been injured in Afghanistan, men and women who had been injured in Afghanistan. Those are veterans too. Are families of veterans. Some of those families are families of veterans. He was some of those families lost people, and he was another generation to fight another generation. The Afghans were not to fight a war themselves. But I will tell you, we have been in touch. We will continue to be in touch. But I will tell you, we have been in touch. We will assure you that the president will look for opportunities. And I can assure you that the president will look for opportunities to discuss and engage with veterans groups soon. Sure.
Sure. Several times, you've been asked several times, why hasn't the president nominated an FDA? Is there a specific holdup that you can point to right now that explains why it is not a qualified doctor in the country that the president could nominate doctor in the country that the
I can assure you, I wish I had a nominee for the FDA. I wish I had a nominee for the FDA so that I could present them to all of you, and it is a very good question to all of you, and it is a very good question. Nominate the right person wants to serve, nominate the right person, and yes, of course, there are a range of qualified and talented medical experts, qualified and talented medical experts. We've not identified the right person yet. We've not identified the right person yet. Go ahead. Hopefully, we'll be able to do that soon. Go ahead. Federal Reserve. I knew it. Federal Reserve. It's like bingo. I knew it. It's like bingo.
Secretary Yellen. Secretary Yellen has privately expressed her support for Chairman Powell appointing him. Has he made a decision when?
I don't have anything new for you on this. Nor do I have anything new for you on this. Nor do I have a timeline of when he might make a decision.
Secretary Yellen's apparent partner.
I will leave that to Secretary Yellen. I will leave that to Secretary Yellen and the Treasury. Go ahead.
Do you have any update? This week is supposed to be this week is supposed to be the end of the 90 origins of the coronavirus. Do you have any update on do you have any update on when that can we expect to see publicly? What can we expect
It's
to see
actually
publicly?
tomorrow. Sure. It's actually tomorrow. I know Peter's especially excited about it. I would say that it will take. It typically takes. I would say that it will take. It typically takes a couple of days, put together an unclassified version, put together an unclassified version to present publicly, and obviously the president on any findings. So I don't have an exact date for you, but I would expect. I don't have an exact date for you, but I would expect a couple to several days after tomorrow. A couple to several days after tomorrow.
Thanks, Jen. Two questions. Just one.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Two questions. Just one on that.
Yeah.
The president talked today about.
Yeah.
He encouraged companies to encourage companies to step requirements. But will today's announcement their vaccine requirements? But will today's announcement any new or any additional vaccine mandates from the administration beyond nursing home employees and the stuff that you guys have already announced?
I expect there will be more. Sure, as we've said all along. And I would note that my colleagues at the Department of Defense conveyed that they would move in the coming days to mandate the vaccine now that the approval has come from the FDA for Pfizer. So we certainly expect there will be more mandates for factions of federal employees.
And then on Afghanistan, a broader question. Does the president see any substantive differences between the Taliban leadership that exists right now and the regime that existed 2 decades ago?
I don't think we're in a position to make any assessment on that front at this point in time. I would just reiterate, this is not about trust. This is not about providing validity for anyone. Our focus right now is on working to get American citizens, our Afghan partners, working with our allies to get them out of the country. Part of that has been a discussion and ongoing discussions with the Taliban about individuals moving safely to the airport. That's what the focus of our engagement with them has been at this point. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jen, thanks. Just following up on the COVID-19 origins report, is that going to be released in full, or could there be redactions following the process you were talking about on classified documents? Just talk about that, and what is the process in which the administration is going to release this? Are you going to, is it just going to come out in an email, or is there some way you're going to do this?
I would expect that there would be an unclassified version, and sometimes that means declassification. I can't assess that at this point in time because tomorrow is 90 days, not last week. And then we certainly would make you all aware of what the outcome is. I don't know what format that will take at this point in time yet. It's a good question. Go ahead, Karen.
To follow up on the question that was just asked, when the president said today that he's calling on companies to require the vaccine, he said, do what I did last month. To just get more specific, will he expand that federal employee vaccine requirement and actually mandate it so there's no more option of opting out and doing the testing every week and social
For all
distancing?
federal
For all
employees?
federal employees.
I think you're looking more at agency to agency or different factions of the government at this point, but expect there will be more on that front.
And then to follow up, does the administration now see this as an opportunity to refresh the public messaging campaign that you guys have been doing on vaccinations now that there's the full FDA approval?
Yeah, Karen, it's a really good question. I think what we don't know how to assess is obviously there has been a percentage of people in some of your polls as well who have said, I'm waiting for the vaccine to get final approval, and it's not approved yet. We're sort of going to test that proposition and see. And we are hopeful that there are a number of those people who have said that who will now go out and get vaccinated. And certainly communicating directly with people who are not yet vaccinated is always a priority, but this is a moment to redouble our efforts to do exactly that. Go ahead.
So the president said today he's going to talk more about safely reopening schools. Is there any changes to the administration's guidance that we should be expecting coming forward? When do we expect to hear from him on that?
I would say soon. I think we're still working to finalize what that might look like. But the president is certainly, as a parent and a grandparent himself, well aware, and as somebody who employs a number of us who have children, well aware of the understandable questions that parents have. Some have anxieties, and he wants to be able to speak directly to what his preparations are, how we rely on the science, and all of the steps we've taken through our Department of Education to make sure schools have the resources they need to open and stay open if they apply them this school year. But I don't have a scheduling preview for you at this point in time, but I expect you'll hear from him soon.
In-person learning is still a priority, still the
Yes,
president expects it to be open 5 days a week.
Correct. Nothing has changed in that regard. Now, I will say this. A lot has changed over the last 8 months in that we have provided tens of millions of dollars out to schools, out to states that has been distributed to many school districts who didn't have the resources they needed to replace air conditioning systems or ventilation, to do social distancing in some cases, to ensure they had testing requirements. That has changed. The Secretary of Education has made this one of his top, if not his top priorities, sharing best practices, working directly with school districts. As we have seen across the country in some particular states, we cannot force these states to allow school districts to put in these precautions that will help keep students safe. If they don't put in place the precautions, it's more likely there will be cases, and then they will have to take steps regarding quarantining, etc. But we have taken every step we can think of to engage, to empower, to equip school districts with the resources they have so that they can stay open 5 days a week. Go ahead.
Yes, Jen, what's your reaction to former President Trump this weekend at a rally in Alabama asking his supporters to get vaccinated and then getting booed?
Well, one, we will take anyone who has a big platform out there who wants to encourage people to get vaccinated, doing it. That's a good thing, and we understand that some of the people who are not yet vaccinated are not people who may have Biden-Harris stickers on their cars, and that's okay. In terms of, I think it's just a recognition, as we are very clear-eyed about, that there are still people who are skeptical out there in the country, that there are still people who whether because of misinformation or a range of factors, are not yet getting vaccinated, even though it could save their lives. It means we still have more work to do, and we are committed to doing exactly that. Go ahead.
Jen, thank you. At the risk of this being a yes or no answer, is the president concerned about being put on the spot with these pledges to get Americans out of Afghanistan by the 31st? All those who want to get out of Afghanistan. Is he concerned about being put on the spot with this?
By whom?
By just the general public opinion or whatever, with these pledges from him, from Jake and others. Doesn't it put the president on the spot a little bit?
The president believes it's the responsibility of any president and the United States to convey to any American that if they want to come home, we're going to find a way to bring you home. And that commitment does not end on the 31st. But he is absolutely focused every single day, and I've been in a lot of these meetings, on ensuring we are expediting our processing, we are thinking creatively, we are adjusting operations as needed to get more Americans to the airport and out of Kabul. Go ahead. I'll go to you next. So let me go to Andrew, and then I'll go to you next, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Jake mentioned that the U.S. would try to extract Americans who are outside of Kabul and other parts of the country. Does that apply also to Afghan SIV applicants who are also in that same situation, trapped in rural areas, and they can't make their way to Kabul because the Taliban is controlling the roads?
I don't have anything operational I can preview for you on that front. I can tell you that our commitment to our Afghan partners has not wavered, and we are going to do everything we can to contact them directly, which is exactly what we're also doing to figure out the best way for them to safely get to the airport. But I don't have anything more operationally to preview for you.
Last time you briefed, you were asked about the number of SIV-approved Afghans who chose to stay in the country before the latest sort of chaos that we've seen. You said you might get back to us with an overall figure. Have you been able to dig that up?
It's really a number, and I understand that your question. It's really a number the State Department has, and it is not. Okay, it's not a program that we administer from here. I'm happy to follow up on that, as well as Nancy's question and Kelly's question about the numbers.
The president has said it publicly. Why can't you come up with a number if you're going to say it?
Again, it's a program that's administered by the State Department, and the details of that are something that's under their purview. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. First of all, it was a nice discussion. Actually, not nice, very tragic. I'm from Afghanistan. Everybody know. I don't have anything to say. Everybody know that. Thousands of people, 14,000 people around the airport, outside the airport. No food, no shelter. I know. Every single time I get like 20, 30 phone call, contact, everybody's crying, especially women, men. I know it's difficult for the United States to, just as a woman, as a kind woman, that Afghan people really trust you. They love you so much, and they have expectation that the United States never leave them alone. But it happened. It happened. Just what's your message? Do you have any message, positive message? Because women under a lot of emotionally bad situation like that. Just I need your message to them.
First, let me say that watching these scenes is incredibly heartbreaking and tragic. And, I have been to Afghanistan a number of times, and I've met a lot of these women you're talking about. The president has been there a number of times, has met these incredibly brave and courageous women. And I will tell you that I'm sure that part of the conversation the president will have with his partners and will continue to have with the United Nations is how we can continue to provide assistance, continue to stand up for these women and their rights in Afghanistan. So I don't want them to feel they have been forgotten. They have not. And we will keep them in our hearts. And thank you for your question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. This is related to Kelly's question about the polls and the political fallout. Is the president concerned about the Afghan crisis causing a loss of momentum on all the other things he's been trying to do? It's a pretty unique situation to have such an enormous domestic crisis with the pandemic and a lot of people still not wanting to vaccinate. Now the Afghan thing, which is naturally sucking up all the attention and effort and energy, and his landmark piece of legislation, which is now hanging in the air. Can you just describe, just give us a little bit of an overview of the bandwidth that you have, that he has for, I'm sure he wasn't expecting to be here, right, back in the summer of freedom.
Well, First, you're not elected president expecting to do easy things. You're expecting to do hard things. You don't come and work at the White House because you're expecting to have easy days. You come to work here because you're expecting to do hard things and be a part of doing hard things. And certainly that's what we're facing right now. But let me give you kind of another way to look at this. We have now vaccinated more people than ever, almost, if not ever, have been vaccinated ever in the United States in history. We are operationalizing perhaps the largest airlift, U.S. airlift in history. We are working toward getting 2 major pieces of legislation through Congress, through the House of Representatives, and then hopefully, and then the president will look forward to signing each into law that will change millions of people's lives across this country, fundamentally address the climate crisis, and invest in industries to make us more competitive for our future. So yes, I know we see polls. Many of your organizations have seen polls, but we also came here to do hard things, and I would say those are a couple of things that we're proud to be a part of. Go ahead.
Yeah, the staff in some of these schools, and the kids even in some of these schools without mask mandates, are getting sick, some of them very sick. Secretary Cardona seemed to hint last week that the federal government could investigate districts that fail to provide a safe return to school. Does the president think there should be consequences, and is there any discussion of tools that the federal government could use?
Well, thank you for your question. As a mother myself, as I know I've noted many times, but it would be incredibly scary to me as my daughter is preparing to go to kindergarten next week if there were not masks in elementary school. And I know a lot of parents in Florida, Texas, and other states around the country are confronting that, and some kids are getting sick. We have talked a bit about steps we have taken to ensure that these superintendents and school districts and teachers are kept whole financially, if there are restrictions put in place, and hopefully prompting them to take a number of the steps that schools and school districts have taken over the past couple of months. We will continue to encourage that. In terms of consequences, I don't think I have anything to preview for you on that front. Thank you, everyone. I'm so sorry I got to run. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Jen.